All right, so this talk is based on one small section, just a couple of paragraphs in this particular book called Ecology and Religion by Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm, two professors of religion that profoundly shaped the way that I think about religion. So I'm going to share a little bit about the four elements in this PowerPoint. One of the things that I think we misunderstand when we hear the word religion in our culture is that we somehow feel the necessity to connect it with faith or belief. Maybe faith in God or faith in something. And it's often associated with what you believe in. And we often don't perceive the very basic fact that without ecology, there is no religion. People, when I was going to school, I was doing a double major in biology and religion, and people thought, oh, those are two diametrically opposed fields of study. Why would you do something like that? How does that make sense for you? But if you look closely enough at religion, you can find, and I hope you will see that this evening, you can find that there are myriads of references in any of the world's religions to the four great elements. They're all weaved into all of the religions of the world. And we'll look at an example of that and how that is done within the Zen Buddhist tradition. But first, what are these four great elements? They're earth, and this could be the planet Earth, but it can also be referring to the soil, the minerals, the rocks. Wind or air, sky. And this could be referring to the air that we breathe in, but also the celestial bodies up in the sky that we might see in the early evening, planets, the stars, the moon. Fire. Fire is also one of the four great elements. And this could be referring to the fire that warms the planet that comes from the sun. But even within the earth, there is a fire. The mantle is molten lava at Earth's core. So hot it can melt iron. The same is true in the heart of the sun. It gets so hot in a supernova that this is where iron is actually made. The atoms that make up iron are made during the heat of a supernova. But even just our bodies getting warm is a way that fire manifests. And you know that when you're dead, if you see a lifeless body, that it is cold, the fire is no longer inside of it. But fire isn't just about physical elements. It can also be referring to emotional or mental elements within us, the fire of passion, the fire of love, desires. That's a kind of fire too. And water. Last but not least, how could we live without water? Water comprises some 70% of our bodies. And ironically, or maybe not ironically, some 70% of the Earth's surface is water. So human beings are like a microcosm of the macrocosm. If you think about the Earth's body, we're just reflecting the components of the earth. So these four great elements correspond with what we'll call the religious ecological process. And so I want to go through how each one of these four is connected to four what we'll call religious ecological processes. And these are words that I'm borrowing from the book I mentioned, Religion and Ecology, Ecology and Religion. So let's look at air and sky. These elements are connected to the concept of orienting. And I won't go into this in much depth right now in this particular talk. I'll leave that for another time. But just to say that orienting is referring to the way that religions have oriented people over millennia to who they are and where they should go, or maybe what they're about. And just as an example, you might think about how the stars in the sky orient people. We know based on the location of certain stars where north is. And you see references to stars in religious literature. The Buddha was said to be enlightened on the morning upon seeing the morning star. The Magi found Jesus because of thanks to the stars in the sky. They knew where he was located. In all of the world's traditions, we find references to the sky in some way. The element of earth is connected to the religious concept of grounding, how religions can ground us. Right? You might think about ways in which religions do that. And when I'm saying this, you don't necessarily need to be religious, because if we go back to the very premise of this, is that religion doesn't always have to do with belief or faith in something. We're talking about just a more foundational level of religion. That religions are deeply interwoven with these four great elements. So what are ways in which you might question, what are ways in which religions, or the religions that you are most familiar with, interweave the concept of earth? One example that comes to mind, and again, we'll go into this a little bit more deeply at another time, but is the idea, for example, in the Catholic Mass of the body of Christ, the bread that you eat, the wheat, the metaphor of wheat, and how a grain of wheat has to die in order for it to produce 100 grains of wheat from a single plant. That metaphor of wheat is, and in the Asian religious traditions, you have the metaphor of rice. In the South American religious traditions, you have the metaphor of corn. All of these food sources springing out from the earth that ground us. And then the fourth one? Water. The element of water is connected with the religious ecological concept of nurturing. Nurturing. You can think about without water. We could go without food for some, I don't know how long, a long time, many, many days, but you can't go without water for a very short time. We all need water to survive. We need clean drinking water. And in the many religious traditions, all religious traditions speak about water. I'm thinking about within the Christian tradition, there's baptism and how Jesus was baptized within the Jordan River. And certainly in Buddhism, there's references to the Ganges River close to where the Buddha had walked or bathed in even. And then the last one is fire, and that's associated with the religious ecological concept of transformation. Transformation. Right? Fire connected with. So we have fire on the physical level, we have fire on the emotional, mental level with the passion or desire. And there's also fire on the spiritual level. So you can see these different levels in which these four concepts can play out. There's a physical level, there's an emotional, mental component to them, and there's also a spiritual component. And the spiritual component to fire is transformation. Somehow our consciousness is transformed through deepening our experience or understanding of life. So this is a quote from the Ecology and Religion book. It says, religious ecologies weave humans into the element of life, both practically and symbolically. It's practically, right? Think of earth, water, food, that's on a practical level. And then symbolically, that's referring to the spiritual level. In a similar way, and here's where religion and science interweave. In a similar way, the scientific discipline of ecology studies the interaction of the elements in ecosystems. Right? In a similar way, the scientific discipline of ecology, think about the study of ecology, the study of bioregions, of life regions, of the animals that inhabit a space, of the plants that inhabit a space, the insects, the soil that's in a space, what comprises the soil, the health of water or waterways. This is referring to the discipline of ecology. And there is a study of how the elements are interacting within the ecosystem. And in the same way, we see this interaction between the practicality in a religious sense, but also the symbolism, the religious symbolism that water plays. So I'd like to close with this excerpt from Zen Master Dogen's foundational, mind-expanding fascicle called the Genjo Koan. It's just one sentence from it. It's kind of in the. There's actually multiple places where we can find references to all four of these elements within this fascicle, but I want to focus just briefly, very, very briefly, on the element of water, and then in a later talk, we'll go into more deeply how water is represented in Zen Master Dogen's Genjo Koan. So look at this saying. When a person attains realization, it is like the moon's reflection in water. When a person attains realization, it is like the moon's reflection in water. And he says a lot more about this particular metaphor. Realization, or maybe some people would call it enlightenment. If you want to know what it is, Dogen draws from the elements. He draws from, actually in this case, he's drawing from both the air element, because he's talking about a celestial body, the moon, and how the moon, the celestial body, is reflected in water. These two elements are. It's not that they're separate, and we human beings want to put them into separate categories. There's water, there's earth, there's air, there's fire. But in reality, these elements are all within each other, just as the moon is reflected within the water. And this is a metaphor for saying that within you is me, and within me is you. Within everything is everything. Right? That's the realization. This is the experiential realization of Zen. That we can, when we really look deeply at life, we can see that not only that are these elements within us, right, but something even deeper than that, that we're all connected. Every one of us is connected. Right? Just like the moon is reflected in water. All right, well, stay tuned for some more of these talks on the elements. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll leave some comments or questions. Thank you.